Hello everyone, I'm Kush and I'm a rater in Method, and today with the release of patch 8.3 right around the corner, I'm going to rate the top 5 melee DPS classes. This rating will not be based solely on damage output of the class, but also its utility and usefulness in the raid as a whole. Number 4 and 5 I have put DK and Paladin in the same spot. And the reason behind that is because they're both good melee classes and they bring different utilities to the raid, which might change in value depending on the boss encounter and what type of damage is required. Having said that, let's take a look and compare. The only raid utility a DK brings is Death Grip, and while it's a nice trick to have, it's not always useful and it's not as powerful as the Mass Grip, which you can find as a Blood DK. They do have a 1 minute cooldown magic immunity with AMS, and you also have Death Strike, both of which can help with big hits and ease the pressure for healers in progression. Unfortunately, their mobility is the weakest on this list, as Death's Advance is a 8 second 30% speed buff on a 45 second cooldown. You could choose the talent Wraithwalk to help with this, but it would be at the cost of sacrificing defensive potential. In terms of damage, DKs are very bursty on both single target and AoE, and this can come in handy on fights that require high damage in a short window of time, both on single target and AoE. Paladins are well known for their utility abilities: Blessing of Wisdom for healer mana, Blessing of Protection for physical immunity, and Divine Shield for 10 seconds of full immunity, and Blessing of Freedom. Their only mobility spell, Divine Steed, is a 3 second speed boost with a 45 second cooldown, and unlike DK, choosing Cavalier, which is a talent that gives 2 charges to Divine Steed, is on a talent row that is more forgiving, and this makes Paladin slightly better with mobility, though you may find taking a shorter cooldown on your utility abilities more helpful for your raid. For survivability, there are the abilities mentioned before, Blessing of Protection and Divine Shield, but they also have Shield of Vengeance and Lay on Hands. Paladin's sustainability is decent, but they lack a damage reduction cooldown, which can be crucial in fights with big raid hits. Paladins are also a burst class similar to DK, with most of your damage being front-loaded in your cooldowns. But the biggest difference between Paladin and DK is that Paladin is either like full single target or full AoE, and the reason Paladins are not higher on this list is because their utility is very situational and sometimes you don't have any effect on the fight at all. Number 3, Rogue. While Rogues don't bring any raid bud utility, they do have the 2 minute cooldown immunity Cloak of Shadows, which often finds great use in progress, and this can be paired with Feint, which is a 15 second cooldown that gives you 40% damage reduction to all AoE damage. This makes Rogue strong with both surviving big damage and removing debuffs. Also, their movement capability is really good with Grappling Hook, Shadow Step and Sprint. Assassination Rogue has very high burst damage on a 2 minute cooldown with Vendetta and Vanish, so they're really good for priority damage, but they're also decent at multi-dotting. Their only big downside is that they have like no AoE damage. That being said, if you really need heavy AoE damage, Outlaw might be your choice. While you don't see it a lot in raid environment, Blade Flurry is a really strong burst AoE ability, which could become desirable on fights going into 8.3. For example, fights like Hivemind, Carapace, where the entire fight consists of multiple targets. Number 2, Warrior. A big reason to always have a Warrior is the raid buff, and while you could replace this with a scroll, it would be less effective, so unless you're running a warrior tank, you'll want at least 1 DPS warrior in your raid. Warriors also bring Rallying Cry, which increases your max HP and makes taking larger hits of damage easier. On top of this, they're also quite mobile with double charge and heroic leap. Fury Warrior have good sustained damage in both single target and cleave thanks to the Cold Steel Outblood Astrite trade, which also increases your self-healing, but they don't have a lot of burst damage. Arms Warriors, similar to Fury, has really good cleave damage, but they also have really high burst damage in Execute with the Test of Might trait, which is a big part of Arms Warrior damage right now. I would say Arms Warrior has more cons than Fury in progression, as they're more reliant on getting the correct traits, and they don't have the same self-sustain either. At the number 1 spot we have Demon Hunter, and one of the reasons I've placed Demon Hunters on the top of the list is because of the unique debuff they bring, which is a 5% magic damage increase on enemies. Because of this, you'll always want at least 1 Demon Hunter in your raid. They also bring Darkness, which is a 3 minute raid cooldown similar to the Warrior Rally, and it can be helpful during times of high damage intake. Demon Hunter also has the best mobility in the game, with abilities like Fell Rush, Double Jump and Vengeful Retreat, so you will never find yourself lacking mobility. Other than their utility and crazy movement, Demon Hunters are capable of strong self-sustain and consistent damage in both AoE, cleave and single target. Their only downside is that they don't really have a lot of bursts, and the 1 DPS cooldown they have is on a very long cooldown. A quick honorable mention still is Windwalker. Even though it didn't make the top 5, you might still find play in a Windwalker Monk if you don't not intend to use a Brewmaster or a Mistweaver. They did get a small single target buff in 8.3, so you might see some Windwalker gameplay. And personally, I would love to see Windwalker gameplay, since it's one of my favorite specs in the game in terms of playstyle, and it would be amazing to see it receive some love. Other than the small single target buff for Windwalker, the melee classes and the asteroid traits did not really receive any changes at all coming into this patch. And I do think Blizzard could have done a better job at balancing the poor performing specs, but you never know, there might be still more changes to come. And the specs that made top 5 are all kind of close in terms of raid usefulness, but when it comes to the specs that I didn't mention, which are Feral Druid, Survival Hunter, Enhancement Shaman, and the Windwalker Monk, the gap between these specs and the top 5 is pretty big. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below on what you'll be playing coming into 8.3. You can find a link to my stream in the description. See you next time!